I've always thought that anyone playing anything competitive and wants to win will always try their best. The thing with our attempts at that, yours and mine, is you think to yourself, I was hitting my shots yesterday, I was one-tapping everyone. And now, whenever I peek, I insta-die before I can even react. Surely, it's the game, right? Right? I wish it was. It would help explain the red carpet I end up getting on Valorant or the minus 400 RP session I get on Apex. But I fear that, that might just be some level of coping, and there may be other factors at play instead. Let's try and minimise those factors as best as we can. With the focus being playing at our best, I've decided to cut it down into 3 different categories, just to keep it hopefully light, simple and easy to remember. Those are aim, sleep, focus. Simple, right? I thought we'd start with aim because, realistically, we all know what aim is at this point, and there seems to be vast amounts of knowledge about this topic available on places like YouTube with hundreds of hours of videos dedicated to that very topic. And yet, seemingly at the same time, there seems to be very little science-based knowledge about it. I've seen video after video about particular styles of aiming for you, particular mice, particular mouse pads, particular routines for certain games, and even scenarios within those games. The list goes on, but as I said, I just can't find much in terms of science-based literature. There are some pieces out there, and I'm going to go through them today, but it just feels a bit lacking. So all the articles that I've researched, I will link in the description so you can go and read them for yourselves and maybe consider if I've read or summarised something incorrectly. That's entirely down to you. But as a summary, what I found is the following. Using aim trainers before a gaming session will not necessarily actually benefit that particular gaming session. On the other hand, doing moderate cardiovascular activity before a gaming session will lead to improved aim, not in the sense of your aim is better, but your aim will be faster. Also, hand-eye coordination training provides benefits in terms of more efficient eye movement patterns, so this would actually translate in-game into acquiring a target and being able to move your mouse to that target in a more efficient manner, which we all know aiming at a higher level is fundamental to success. Going back to aim trainers, I potentially controversially said that doing aim training before a gaming session doesn't necessarily provide any benefit to that gaming session. What I didn't just say was that aim trainers don't work. The problem is there's no scientific study on how much does an aim trainer benefit over an in-game training range or simply playing the game. And I really can't see that being funded anytime soon, I'm afraid. With that being said, I think it should be evident that the benefits of using an aim trainer is to improve the dexterity of your fine motor skills. And that, as a concept, is aiming. The dexterity of things like your arm, your wrist, and your fingers. If you really didn't want to practice aim training but still wanted to improve your aim, I suppose there are things you could do in terms of dexterity exercises as a replacement. That combined with hand-eye coordination drills should in theory improve your aim, and I'm talking ridiculous things like juggling. Yes, in theory, juggling will help your aim. I've not tried it, but I have purchased a set of juggling balls, and that's it for the aiming. Next is your sleep. According to studies done on sleep versus reaction time, if you get circa under 7 hours of sleep a night, your reaction time could be 50 milliseconds slower than otherwise. And I believe that is significant enough to make a noticeable difference. You spend all this time, money and effort reducing the latency of your system, whether it be the latest gaming mice at 8000 Hz, your keyboard now apparently at 8000 Hz, your monitor's latency, your computer's latency, your refresh rate, all of these sorts of things you work on reducing the whole time, your FPS of your games, all of this sort of jazz. And then you go and mess up your sleep cycle and literally undo all of it. Whilst that sounds insanity to me, the main focus is, how do you change that? How do you sort that? And how do you get better amounts of sleep? I'd like to just take a moment to say that whilst I am referencing scientific material. I am not a medical expert in any of these fields. So if you do have any issues in any of the areas involved today, it is always worth speaking to a medical professional. I am merely taking what I can find as publicly available information and summarizing it. That's all. The list I have, I could go on and on and on about, but I'm not going to bother. I'm going to select a few topics that I think could benefit the majority of people. So as again, I'll post the link below, but if you know your sleep isn't great, maybe take a look through the whole list and see what will work for you. The first we're going to mention is about sleep hygiene. When I say hygiene, I'm not talking about showering before bed, and I'm not about to start the argument of whether it's better to shower before or after bed. That's a different topic. What I'm more focused on is sort of the routine of your sleep schedule and what that looks like building up to it. Talking about things like having a regular time for your sleep and making sure that that time is at a reasonable time in the night or towards the evening. Going on from that, focusing on that unwinding before bed. That kind of means avoiding electronic devices about an hour before bedtime so you don't get that blue light shining in your face. Instead, maybe focus on some light reading or listening to relaxing music, or even, hear me out, meditation. And going on from that, trying mindfulness for your sleep. I've been there when you're anxious or you're stressed or you're worried and you just lay there wide awake, unable to get those thoughts out of your head. And that's where it might be useful to talk to someone you can trust or actually just write it down to get those thoughts out of your head. And that's all for sleep. I could go into a lot more detail, but I just wanted to keep it kind of light and simple and kind of give you access to this sort of information that you could go and look up yourself. Because finally, we're on to focus. And it can really be summarized quite easily as just one sentence. Deliberate practice beats just play more. If you look at competitive sports throughout history, you will always see that the notion of playing the real thing is incredibly important. But you will also come to understand that you need to practice particular pieces in order to focus on weaker areas and strengthen those. For example, and I think this applies to almost both basketballers and footballers or soccer players, and that's the term of like dribbling or shooting, defending. All those sorts of things require practice almost on their own, and then for you to or them to implement it into the wider game. They don't just play basketball and football over and over and over again and expect to do better and better and better. They practice isolated aspects to incorporate it into a more comprehensive whole, and so should you. Now, there is more that we could go over, and I'm sure some of you in the comments will let me know whether you agree or disagree, but I'm going to leave it there for today. I believe that the vast majority of people can take something away from this video, but something I have on purpose not mentioned until this point, and it's very much worth focusing in almost entirely on, and it's the whole reason why we play games in the first place in theory. It's fun. Don't forget to have fun. The more you enjoy the game you play, the more you'll naturally improve at it. You're more relaxed, you're less tense, you're less stressed, you're less concerned. So, sit back, like this video and subscribe. Have a laugh at your failures, chuckle at your whiffs, and have a good time, and use it all as a learning experience. Because that's all for me today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Much love. Goodbye.